reporters show South Africa is a movie.
Welcome to the Watch Party!
Now, Stacey's coming back in a second, but first, lots of South Africans have woken up to the news in the last few days that there is a massive alleged tender fraud that has been uncovered, and the CEO of an organization called IDT, the CEO's name is Tebogo Malaka, is now in a lot of trouble, essentially because it seems like IDT, and she was the overseer of that, secured a tender to the value of 836 million rand to supply oxygen to over 50 hospitals in South Africa. And you know where this is going. You've probably seen movies like this before. Oxygen, not so much. And so I'm extremely fortunate and delighted to say that we've got just about one of the perfect people to come onto the show and explain to us what is happening, because her reporting, along with other members of her team, has kind of broke the story to South Africa about this scandal over the last year. Please welcome, from the wonderful Center for Investigative Journalism, AmaBhungane, it is none other than Azarrah Karrim, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. You must be thinking, finally, people care about this. You've been writing about this for at least a year, if I think, and I've read all of the reporting from AmaBhungane, from you and Peter Louis Meyerberg. Do you somehow feel like finally people are waking up to this?
Oh, absolutely. So I've been actually investigating the IDT since early last year, with the start of a National Treasury investigation into a separate matter. It's very difficult for journalists to get traction or impact on their stories just because of the lack of will that's behind it. And this story received fantastic reception, which is rare. But yeah, such a relief.
I often say to people that if the corruption scandal is less than 100 million, I don't even read it. Because it's like the numbers are too low for me to be impressed, because some of the numbers are so astronomical, but 836 million. So let's start with what is the IDT, so that people know.
So the IDT, it's the Independent Development Trust,
okay.
Not to be mistaken with the Independent Development Corporation.
Okay.
It is an entity of the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. It's essentially a government implementing agent. So it takes, government departments, both national and provincial, will outsource their procurement processes to the IDT. And the IDT's mandate is to deliver critical social infrastructure in South Africa. So that's schools, that's clinics, that's police stations.
Sure. It's their job to make it happen.
So they will do the procurement process on behalf of other government departments. And so therefore, they handle billions in government money.
It's a really powerful and important kind of agency.
So exactly. So for whatever reason, a government department can't do that in-house. They will ask the IDT to do it. It does, however, create some issues because the IDT, unlike a government department, doesn't have the same level of transparency and reporting structures.
Oh, I see.
So money goes from a department to the IDT, and then there's some opaqueness.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the IDT was supposed to handle an 836 million rand tender to create a plant that kind of basically bottles oxygen at a quality for hospitals, right?
No. So the IDT...
Someone should do some research at this show, guys. Somebody should have told me that wasn't right.
No, you're not completely wrong.
Not completely wrong.
Not to create the plants, but deliver them. So
yes.
Have you ever been to a hospital and you see those massive tanks at the side of the hospital?
Yes.
So that is essentially what delivers oxygen into the hospital for patients that really need it, obviously. Okay. And so they procured contractors who would deliver these plants to about 55 hospitals, actually health facilities, so that's clinics and hospitals across the country.
And then, what went wrong? Why did you end up writing about this?
So the story was broken by Daily Maverick. After Daily Maverick broke it, AmaBhungane obtained procurement documents for the actual procurement process. So we joined forces and did it together.
Okay, so you were able to see the paper trail of what had happened.
Exactly.
Can I ask a boring question?
Mm-hmm.
Why did they give you that paper trail? Like, if I was in government and had done something shady, I'd do everything I could to not let the journalists get the evidence of what had gone wrong.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't give it to me. Let's just say that.
Oh. We're dealing with a boss, people. We're dealing with a boss. Okay, so you guys got these documents, and what did you discover?
I mean, there were the whole thing was riddled with red flags. So we found that the company that was awarded the lion's share of that contract. First of all, we found that the contract had actually ballooned from 250 million initially to 836 million by the end of it. And then we found that the contractor that was awarded the lion's share, 428 million rand of that contract, didn't have proper address. I mean, it didn't exist. It only existed on paper. We, in fact, visited the offices which they listed in their procurement documents. And those offices were, at that point, occupied by a school. The companies had moved out there months prior.
Wow.
So no offices. And that's important because then where are they directing operations for this very critical project? We also found that the company didn't have the required SAPRA verification. Now, SAPRA is the South African Products Health Regulatory Agency. So essentially, it's a regulatory agency that ensures that people who are handling medical equipment have the proper licenses and that medical equipment is up to standard.
So they got a contract to provide for oxygen to hospitals without the license to say that they can handle medical equipment.
Well, not only that, but we found that the IDT hadn't even listed the SAPRA requirement as a mandatory requirement in the tender specifications.
That is insane.
And then we found that the company, the company's name is Balking, actually used another third-party company SAPRA certificate without that company's knowledge.
What?
And I mean, there were a host of other red flags. The ballooning of the contract, the doctoring of prices, and then most interestingly, and this has never happened to me in my career before, but we met with the director of Balking and his lawyers. So when we just started to look at these documents and we found red flags and we called for a meeting with this guy and we met with him in Sandton with his lawyers. A couple days later, he's found dead.
Sure.
That's a investigation that is still ongoing with the police, but highly suspicious. And then do you want me to go on with what we found? I mean, I think
So essentially what happened after that is that Dean McPherson, who's the Department of Public Works' minister, he got PricewaterhouseCoopers, which is an auditing firm, to look over the findings. And they delivered their report just a few days ago. And now, if I understand correctly, the CEO of IDT, Tebogo Malaka, has been suspended?
Yes, so she's been put on precautionary suspension. In our third article, we published about how it seemed as if the Tebogo Malaka and the Director General of the Department of Health pushed this deal over the finish line, despite glaring red flags. And they did this by ignoring warnings from health officials of what we call a scope creep. So that is when a tender changes above, the tender specifications change above a certain %, you actually have to restart or cancel the tender.
Oh, I see.
And despite warnings from health officials and the project steering committee, they went ahead with it and pushed on. And what PwC found in their investigation, and it must be said that McPherson didn't release the report. He spoke about the report in his media briefing. But
that is weird.
What they found, what PwC found, was what they recommended was disciplinary action against Malaka, as well as the general manager for supply chain management. And that was because of neglect, pushing ahead despite warnings and despite an irregular process. And interestingly, they also recommended disciplinary action against the entire bid evaluation committee, which is very interesting because in terms of National Treasury regulations, the entire committee is responsible for a failed adjudication.
Are those political appointees on that committee?
PwC did not find any relationships in that regard.
Okay, well, firstly, thank you for uncovering this Like, it's amazing that we have journalists like this doing this work. That's incredible. But secondly, I'm always like deeply moved by investigative journalists in this country who are brave enough in a world where people get killed for being whistleblowers, journalists get harassed and intimidated, that like there's an enormous amount of hardcore bravery to do this kind of work. And I'm sure that you were put through the ringer and maybe continue to be put through the ringer by people who are trying to silence and intimidate you guys out of doing your work.
Yes, and that's par for the course. You kind of have to have a thick skin here. But it was more so obvious in this investigation with a very organized social media backlash and campaign against us as journalists, against the IDT board, the new board, who are, really trying to clean up the place, it seems, as well as the minister, Dean McPherson.
Sure. And just as an investigative journalist, is it like, how do you sleep at night? Like managing the anxiety. I don't know if you worry about people getting your phone number or knowing where you live or like calling you in the middle of the night, random voices and that. Like, I hope that doesn't happen. But given the fact that you interviewed a guy who 3 days later or 4 days later was found dead, it must be really hard.
Well, that's the thing is, it's funny because when we talk about whistleblowers, I think whistleblowers find it very hard to come out and speak to the media and air their concerns, obviously, because of the dangers involved and because of putting themselves in the firing line. But at the same time, on the other hand, I do believe that the daylight disinfects. So if anything happens to me, it's going to be pretty obvious.
Yeah.
I think that maybe I am not as at risk as the people who are blowing the whistle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, we're so happy that you're alive. We're so happy that you're doing what you're doing. And thank you so much for all the work that you and people like you continue to do. The incredible Azarrah, Karrim, everybody. From amazing. Thank you so much.